Hi everyone, welcome to part 4 of training your dog to take pills. This is the last installation of this series, and today we are going to get to the dog actually taking pills. Training your fearful dog to take pills part 4. If you missed earlier videos in the series, they are all housed on the same blog, dogkindtraining.com/blog/pills, and also on our YouTube channel. A quick refresher for anyone who is coming to this series late. Who is this for? This is for you if you have trouble getting your dog to take pills, your dog is a slow or suspicious eater and is therefore likely to dig pills out of treats, and your dog doesn't quickly and consistently take treats from your hand, which can make it difficult to use some of the more helpful tips and tricks for getting dogs to take pills. I've been using this 2 things in a row game to try to train my dog Pancake and also some of my client dogs to swallow pills without chewing them and without having the pills hidden in food. And I needed a technique that did not require the dog to eat from your hand or to have a hand coming at them to deliver a reinforcer, even if you were going to put it on the floor or some other surface. So a real quick overview of the 2 things in a row game. The goal is to teach your fearful dog to swallow a pill without chewing. Step 1 was just getting the behavior of swallowing something without chewing, and I used small pieces of string cheese for this. Step number 2 was determining how to reinforce eating something less tasty, swallowing something less tasty, without reaching toward the dog to deliver another treat, since many of our sensitive dogs are afraid of hands reaching for them. Step 3, which was the last video, I talked about how I worked to generalize that swallowing behavior, swallowing something without chewing, to lower value food items, not just the cheese we started with. And today I'll show you how we worked from there to actually having Pancake swallow pills. So just a quick visual again of the 2 in a row game and the version that I'll talk about today. You have 2 things on the first treat delivery station or plate, or I'm using cutting boards that you'll see in the videos. Ultimately, I want there to be a pill and 1 other treat, and that second treat, I think, acts, sometimes at least, as a prompt to eat quickly, and also can be a reinforcer if they eat the other thing first, which you can't control, which is why we have the second plate. When the dog does swallow both items on the plate or the first treat delivery station, you can say yes or mark if your dog already knows a marker word, and then place 1 or 2 treats on the second station. So that lets you reinforce eating the less good thing on the first plate or treat delivery station without reaching your hand toward that plate again to give a treat. Here's how I introduced pills into this game for Pancake. I purchased empty gelatin capsules, and you can just get those lots of places online. You want to fill these capsules with something to weigh them down. I found that empty capsules tend to get stuck to dogs' mouths or their lips, which causes problems, as you can imagine. I filled our capsules with flour. I wanted something bland, so hopefully something that wouldn't necessarily punish the dog if they bit into it, but not something that would reinforce biting into the pill either. I coated each capsule with a little bit of something greasy. In my case, I used a butter canola oil blend, so like a margarine, to make it easier for the capsule to be swallowed, and also because, again, with the dry capsules, I found those also got stuck sometimes to Pancake's lips, which did not help with the training. Once I had my filled gelatin capsules that were coated with a little margarine, I paired that with a little piece of cheese on that first plate, and I tried to set them down in an order so that the capsule was closer to Pancake, so I was hoping he would eat the capsule first and then move on to the cheese and have that be a reinforcer for ingesting the capsule, but I couldn't actually control the order he ate those in. Once he had swallowed both items on that first plate, or the first cutting board, in my case, I then delivered treats to the other cutting board as a reinforcer. Here's how I progressed through different sizes of capsules. I played the 2 in a row game with capsule sizes 4 through 0. 4 is the smallest of those, and 0 is pretty big. Again, I filled them with flour. I used a somewhat moderate coating of margarine, and I actually originally did this with room temperature margarine, or what I thought was room temperature margarine, but I found out later that the more I used this, if it was truly room temperature, it started to get pretty messy and stick to my fingers a lot. So what I did later on in training is coat the capsules with the margarine and then pop them in the fridge for several minutes so that it would solidify a little bit. They're much easier to handle that way. And also it was easier for me to control the thickness of the coating. And then I would pair a margarine coated capsule with a piece of cheese on the same plate. Once Pancake was swallowing these capsules with a decent amount of margarine around the outside, I repeated the sequence with less margarine, so a thinner coating. You don't have to do that step. You could just stick with whatever coating works for your dog the first time around. Next, I introduced real medication, so Pancake's actual medications. I didn't do this until Pancake would consistently swallow a size 0 capsule. That's the size in the photo here. It's the biggest size I worked with a thin layer of margarine on it. I went back to a thicker coating of margarine, however, when I first introduced the real medications, because I wanted to make it really likely he would swallow these. I didn't want him biting into them because they definitely would be bitter. I started actually with the gabapentin capsules he takes, which are about a size 3 capsule. Here what you see in the photo is a trazodone tablet broken in half and then put inside a size 0 capsule. So that was the last one I tried because it was the biggest. So I'll show you just a few quick video clips of some of the training steps. I didn't include all of them because they all look pretty much the same. This first one is a smaller capsule and a little cheese. That's just flour in that capsule. A little bit of margarine on the capsule, and then he swallowed those, so I give him a reinforcer on the other cutting board. And the next clip here, this is an example of a larger capsule with some margarine on it and cheese. This is still flour, not real meds, in the capsule. This next clip is, these are his gabapentin capsules with some margarine that I coated them and then popped them in the fridge for a little bit. Paired with some cheese. This is the first time I think I tried the gabapentin. And he actually had a hard time getting it out of the groove on the cutting board, so that's maybe something to consider if you're using cutting boards. And then here's the big capsule with the trazodone in it. So all of these, thankfully, he swallowed without chewing. A couple of additional bonus steps I just wanted to mention in case you're working through this with your own dog. If you want to get rid of that treat chaser or that additional treat that you place on the plate or cutting board with the pill, you can fade it out. I experimented with this a little and it went fine, but it's not important for me to not have that, so I didn't do a ton of it. But I found if I gradually decrease the size of that cheese prompt treat on that first plate, I could eventually fade it out. And I tried first with kibble in place of a pill, just in case it didn't go well, and then tried some fake pills, some flour-filled capsules, before I tried it with a real pill. And that all actually went pretty smoothly. I just shrank the size of the cheese down in each case and then restarted with a bigger piece of cheese if I was switching to a new thing in that pill slot. So this is just a quick visual representation of what that looked like. Big cheese and, say, a kibble or a treat, smaller cheese, and then when Pancake would swallow whatever my thing in the pill slot was by itself with no other treat on the plate, then I would move on to the next item. Another quote-unquote bonus step, by which I really just mean more work for you, something you might have to consider in your training is the time of day. Many dogs seem to be differently food motivated at different times of the day. Pancake is much less interested in food and much harder to get to take his medications in the morning, first thing in the morning versus later in the day. So when I did most of this training, I trained at a time where he was already pretty into food, so early afternoon. And then I'm slowly migrating some training practice earlier and earlier in the day. But this is something you might have to do. So quick summary of this last part of pill training. You'll start this when the dog will swallow pill-sized treats without chewing. You can introduce gelatin capsules at that point, fill them with something that doesn't taste necessarily bad, but not great. When your dog will swallow whatever the desired capsule size is without chewing, with some coating on it if you would like. I prefer to use a coating around the capsule. You can move on to real medication. I would personally continue to coat the medication with something a little bit greasy. And with tablets, honestly, I would put them in capsules to keep the bitter taste of tablets sort of contained. And if you really want to, you can fade out that first prompt treat that I was putting down with the pill. And just a thought as you go forth to train your dog to take undisguised pills, the function of this pill swallowing behavior we've taught in all the steps that I've covered is still food, kind of similar to when you give your dog a treat with a pill hidden in it. They're eating it for the food. So if your dog isn't motivated by food in the moment, like if they're sick, this probably isn't going to work, even if you trained it carefully. Now, most of you in my audience have very fearful dogs, and you are nowhere near being able to touch your dog's face to pill them, to place a pill in their throat. But if you are in a position to teach this, this would be a good backup strategy to have, because then you could at least get the pill into your dog if your dog was not at all interested in food. Okay, I hope you found this helpful. Go have a good time training. If you haven't already, make sure to get our free PDF Caring for Your Fearful Dog at the link below, dogkindtraining.com/care, and I will see you next week.